Hi, welcome to this first look at the Christmas 2025 weather prospects. Now, although I've dug out a Christmas jumper, it is only mid-November. A long way to go until the big day itself. Therefore, it's very important that I throw in a caveat at this point. I'm not claiming to have a crystal ball. It's far too early to be at all confident about the Christmas Day weather. So these updates, there will be one each week in the lead up to the big day, are intended to be mostly for fun, at least until we reach the middle part of December. Of course, they also give me a chance to showcase my range of Christmas jumpers and my Santa hat. All of them will be making an appearance in the coming weeks. So without further ado, let's crack on. And if you do want to keep up to date with the weather, of course, check out the weatheroutlook.com website, but specifically have a look at the Christmas weather forecast page itself. Here's the direct link to it, because there is a new game on there this year, which will give you the chance to win premium access to the weatheroutlook.com website for the whole of 2026. The details about how to do that are on the page itself. Next up, what exactly is a white Christmas? I do make a point of saying this, explaining it every year. It's very important to remember that the Met Office defines a white Christmas as one snowflake being observed falling within the 24 hours of the 25th of December somewhere in the UK. That snowflake does not have to settle, it just needs to fall. Therefore, this may not actually count because there's deep snow on the ground. The buses are still running though, but the skies are blue. The snow has fallen in the lead up to Christmas, so maybe not a white Christmas. Conversely, this scene shows heavy rain, but there are one or two flakes of snow mixed in. It's getting a bit sleety. Yippee! It counts as a technical white Christmas. Not my definition, but that's how it is. And a few Christmas weather facts before we jump into the analogues. The last one with snow on the ground in much of the UK was 2010. It's a long time ago now, but I remember it very well. The big day itself was bitterly cold. It was sub-zero, even in southern parts of the UK. But it was marking the end of that very cold period of weather, which had started in late November and continued through December. January and February were nothing special at all. The coldest Christmas though was in 1878, minus 18.3 degrees. The warmest much more recently in 2015, when 16 Celsius was reached in Devon. In fact, last year in the lead up to December the 25th was speculation that this record could have been challenged. I don't think it was in the end. And the deepest lying snow on Christmas Day was recorded in 1981, 47 centimetres in Perthshire, Scotland. And December 1981, of course, was a very famous month. Lots of snow across the UK, a very cold month. Not quite as cold as December 2010, but I think for many parts of the UK there was more snow. So, on to the forecast part itself. And I'm going to start with the analogues. What are they? Well, they are generated by comparing pressure patterns in recent days and recent weeks with the same period of time in every year going back to 1948 and trying to find the best matches. And what I do here is run through the current best 5 30-day matches. And I'm going to start with number 5. It is 1980. Christmas Day, the animation is shown here, and the blue shade indicates cold, or at least relatively cold air aloft. So we've got a west or northwesterly flow. There is a pool of cold air moving across the UK, relatively cold anyway. So there could have been some wintry showers around, particularly in the north and the west of the UK and over high ground. So chilly, but not spectacularly cold. In number 4, 2005. This was quite an interesting one. High pressure centred over the UK, very cold air moving down its eastern flank, but not a white Christmas in the UK, but quite promising in some ways, because if that high pressure had gone a little bit further north, a little bit further northeast, we could have had a northeasterly or an easterly flow bringing bitterly cold air in off the continent, but we didn't. Into third place, number 3, and it is 2010. I've already discussed in some detail. There's a high pressure which was moving across the UK, but bitterly cold air which had covered much of Western Europe through late November and December. But things were beginning to move, disturbances starting to push in from the Atlantic in the days which followed, and it turned a good deal milder. Nonetheless, there was snow on the ground in much of the UK, and it was a memorable month on the whole. So what about number 2? This week it is 1994. Quite disappointing. An Atlantic flow moving across the UK. Perhaps a little bit of winteriness there in the far north, the far northwest, with some colder air beginning to filter in. Well, on to number 1. What will it be on this update? Here we go. It is 2021, so relatively recently. And once more, it's quite interesting because there was a lot of cold air to the north and the east of the UK, and high pressure there, but it was fairly mild on the whole across the United Kingdom. So not a white Christmas, but you do feel as though it wouldn't have taken a great deal of change in that type of synoptic pattern to lead to very cold weather in our little part of the world. So that's the number 1 analogue at the moment. On the whole, I think they are quite interesting, more so than at this point last year. On to the next part of the forecast itself, and that's using data from the ECMWF Subseasonal ensemble. It goes out to about 40 to 46 days ahead, so the first Christmas Day charts have just become available. When I say Christmas Day charts, it's not Christmas Day itself because the charts are batched up in anomalies for the week as a whole. So here's the anomaly for the 22nd to the 29th of December. Pink shading indicates a positive anomaly, so temperatures over the week as a whole are more likely to be above the average than below it. Blue shading just to the east of the UK, here's the UK, is indicating a negative anomaly, and the white shading, or just the white colouring there, indicates no anomaly is currently forecast. So what does all this mean? You can interpret it how you like, but I would say it's actually quite promising if you're hoping for cold weather in the UK around the Christmas period, because a lot of the time, particularly this year when temperatures have often been above the average, a lot of the time these anomaly charts cover the UK in pink shading when looking this far ahead. Not always, and this is one of those occasions. So the fact that no anomaly is being forecast here is of a good deal of interest, I think, or at least some interest at this range. And the fact that just to the east of the UK there over continental Europe it's actually negative could well be promising. And the next chart is the 500 HPA height anomaly chart. What this is indicating is whether pressure is going to be above or below the average once more over the week as a whole. The brown or orange shading there to the north is pointing towards a positive anomaly, so higher than average pressure. The blue shading across much of Ireland and southwestern England, Wales, is indicating a negative anomaly. So you could argue, you could extrapolate, as I say, this is all very, very speculative. Higher pressure to the north, lower pressure to the west, to the southwest. The UK maybe close to a battleground zone as a boundary between cold air and mild air masses approaches. It's just a very vague possibility, entirely speculative, but I think that's quite hopeful in many ways. So to summarise where we are now, of course, as I've been saying, it is far, far too early to make a forecast, but speculatively, the analogues are quite hopeful, and the ECMWF Subseasonal ensemble plots also are quite promising at this range. The GEFS 35-day charts are not yet available. They're reaching out to around the 18th of December or something like that, but on next week's update, they should start to reach Christmas Day itself. So that will be another source of data to feed into these forecasts. So not too bad for a start. Every time I do one of these updates, I'm going to finish by providing a white Christmas score. So 5 out of 5 would mean a white Christmas is basically a certainty. 1 out of 5, it's not going to happen. What am I going to give this week? Here goes. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. For reasons? Well, because it's very, very early days, so you can always be optimistic at this range. And the analogues and the subseasonal model charts there could be interpreted in a promising way if it's snow and cold weather, which you're hoping for. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this first look at the Christmas 2025 weather prospects. As I said, I'll be issuing updates one a week as we go through the rest of November and December, and things will hopefully start to firm up around about the middle part of December. At this stage though, it's very much keep your fingers crossed. There are some indications that cold spells could be more likely through December this year than they have been in recent years. Even that's relatively speculative though. It's to do with developments in the stratosphere and some of the background signals. It doesn't mean, of course, that we will have a cold month. It just maybe tips the odds a little bit more towards it than otherwise would be the case. So that's me done for on this first update. If you've enjoyed it, then please consider hitting the like button below and subscribing to the channel if you've not done so already. In that case, you'll not miss any of my future updates, whether they be the Christmas ones like this or the 14-day forecasts, which I issue every week on Tuesday or Wednesday. Thanks very much for watching now. Bye.